Hello there. And earlier today, I did a little video on Ultima 2, taking a quick look at that. And I'm still pondering the idea of whether I should have playthrough of all the games. I eventually would like to, but I'm not sure whether I right now want to continue with Ultima 2, because that didn't really age well. And one of my viewers suggested to maybe skip a little bit, forth and back, based on what game I would like to play next, so I don't have to force myself. And maybe we can do that, switch forth and back a little bit. And I talked before about how the first three games were like classic fantasy stuff with some science fiction thrown in, and later on, Lord British, or Richard Garriott, and his company, they went for a different approach. And the first game of that new approach was this one, Ultima IV Quest of the Avatar. Um, and what was new about this game was that he went for a different approach. It wasn't about like killing the bad guy, it was about becoming an avatar of the virtues. He picked out some virtues like honesty, humility, valor, compassion, and you have to become an avatar of all these virtues and, I guess, live a good life. So you had to make moral choices, and you had to do good, not only by slaying the bad guy or helping a damsel in distress, which was really interesting. So right now I'm watching a very interesting video. It's called Museum of the Avatar. There's a guy who visited Richard Garriott at his company, Portalarium, when he was still with that company, and they're going through the Ultima history. And he also talks about the games, different games, and Ultima 4, for example, and where he got the name Avatar. I mean, of course, we know it from the movie, and we know it from gaming. It's like in the gaming encyclopedia as like your game character. But Garriott said he picked it up from like Indian language, and it was like the embodiment of a deity, and so he picked that. And this game is a bit different. This is party based. We can put together a party of different companions, and so let's just take a little look. I'm not saying I'm going to start a whole playthrough of this right now. I eventually will, but let's take a look and see the development, see how where the series went. And the first thing we're gonna see, let us start. Initiate a new game. So let's take the name I took in the other games, and that's actually a name I at some point came up with, and used it in World of Warcraft as well for one of my characters, my shaman. A male character. There are no different races this time, because what Garriott really wanted to go for is that thing that I talked about before, where you are supposed to feel like this is you in the game. So in games like 4, 5, and 6, Ultima 4, 5, and 6, the story would go that you are on Earth and you're living a normal life, and then you find a way to travel to Britannia, which is the new name of Caesarea. After Ultima 3 Exodus, the world had changed a lot, had a new name, new geography, and so let's see how that plays out. So here's a description, and we see there's a bit more graphic going on. This game is a little newer. I think it's 86, right? I didn't check for it on the title screen. So this afternoon walk in the countryside slowly brings relaxation to your harried mind. The soil and strain of modern high-tech living begins to wash off in layers. You know, all that high-tech living in 1986 or 87. That willow tree near the stream looks comfortable and inviting. The buzz of dragonflies and the whisper of the willow's swaying branches bring a deep peace. Searching inward for tranquility and happiness, you close your eyes. I mean, this is already a very different tone from what we saw in Ultima 1. A high-pitched cascading sound like crystal wind chimes impinges on your floating awareness. As you open your eyes, you see a shimmering blueness rise from the ground. The sound seems to be emanating from this glowing portal. There we go. Moongates. I talked about these before. We've used them in that little journey into Ultima 2 that I recorded. And also, I showed you Moongates in Ultima Online. They're like a staple in this series, in this world. It is difficult to look at the blueness. Light seems to bend and distort around it, while the sound waves become so intense they appear to become visible. The portal hangs there for a moment, then, with the rush of an imploding vacuum, it sinks into the ground. Something remains suspended in midair for a moment before falling to earth with a heavy thud. Somewhat shaken by this vision, you rise to your feet to investigate. I mean, compare this to the intro of Ultima 1 and 2, right? A crude circle of stone surrounds the spot where the portal appeared. There is something glinting in the grass. You pick up an amulet shaped like a cross with a loop at the top. It is an ankh, the sacred symbol of life and rebirth. So, we've got the avatar thing from Indian mythology or the Indian language. And now we've got an ankh, which we know from like Egyptian mythology. But this could not have made the third. So you look again and find a large book wrapped in thick cloth. With trembling hands you unwrap the book. Behold, the cloth is a map. And within lies not one book but two. The map is of a land strange to you, and the style speaks of an ancient cartography. The script on the cover of the first book is arcane but readable. The title is The History of Britannia is told by Kyle the Younger. I'll take a look at that later because that was in the box. That's, accompanying the game. The other book is disturbing to look at. Its small cover appears to be fashioned out of some sort of leathery hide, but from what creature is uncertain. The reddish-black skin radiates an intense aura suggestive of ancient power. The tongue of the title is beyond your ken. You dare not open the book and disturb whatever sleeps within. You decide to peruse the history. Settling back under the willow tree, you open the book. You read the book of history. So I guess that I actually did that. Reading the books that came with the game, which was a good way to prepare, to read the manual before you play, because there wasn't like a tutorial in game, which is something we take for granted these days. No, really, read the book of history. So we're supposed to do that. So why don't we do that right now? Hold on. So here is the map that was mentioned in the intro. It came as a cloth map, printed in cloth with the game. You can see there are these runes that stuff is written in, and I can still read a few of them. I was able to read them pretty well back then, but I can't anymore. I can make out like the Britannia Bay, that area here, that little bay area here. And I think this to the left of it is Skara Brae, which is a town name that Richard Garriott, Lord British, liked to use in his games. There was a Skara Brae in Ultima Online as well, because, Ultima Online is set in this world, and the map is very similar. And, so that's the map. So let's take a look at the book that was mentioned. Hold on, let me scroll back. Here we go. The History of Britannia, as told by Kyle the Younger. That was in the game box. And it starts with political history, and there are these drawings again by that artist I mentioned when we looked at the manual of Ultima 1. And it retells the story of the first three games. We got the downfall of the evil wizard Mundane, which we saw in my Let's Play. It talks about Minax and her downfall and the end of the second era of darkness, Ultima 2. And the whole thing about Exodus, which is Ultima 3. See that here. We've got the geography. There's this cute drawing of that little bard here. And there's a lot of stuff to read. And there's a fellowship explaining different classes, mage. And you can see that mages are there's always a town mentioned. The Magi of Britannia gather in Moonglow, which is one of the towns. little lyceum, which you can visit in the game. You've got the bards, fighters. I think later on, like the town where, yeah, Jellum or Yellum. That was like one of the cities that appears a lot. Um, Druids, Tinkers, Paladins, Rangers, and Shepherds. Druids are not like the World of Warcraft Druids. They're fierce fighters, defending their beloved groves, and they're more like nature mages, I guess. And there is Shepherds and stuff. And so it explains like stuff that you can buy at the stores, kind of weapons you can see. Got like halberds, crossbows, flaming oil. You can see the different armor types. No reflective armor or vacuum seats in this one, unfortunately. You can see herbs. These were used for casting spells. All practitioners of the mystic arts will search far and wide to locate these rare shops. Within them is to be found the components, or regions as they are known, for spell mixtures. So you use the combination of these regions to cast your spells. And that is another thing that is a big part of Ultima Online, because if you were a mage and you wanted to cast spells, you had to use, you had to have these regions in your back. Like for certain spells, you had to have like one piece of spider silk and one piece of garlic or something. And later on, you could get like armor stats that would be, they were called lower region codes. So if you had enough of that in your armor, you'd use less or even none of the regions to cast your spells. So get to see a Hawkwind mentioned. He will be part of these games all the way up until Ultima 9. It explains like the landscape, grass, brush, forest, hills, marsh, mountains. We see there's much more to be discovered this time. It shows and explains the different types of weapons, and I would read all the stuff even before playing, because I remember like going to a store to buy this, and it took like a 45-minute ride on the bus to get back from the store to the place I was living at. And I was reading the stuff from I was reading these books and look at these drawings. So, a gazer and Athens, you would meet them in Ultima Online headless. If you watch the Ultima Online video I uploaded today, I was killing one of them. And yeah, so these are the different kind of monsters we can meet, with some really weird ones like the Zorn and stuff. And here we go. We've got all this stuff explained. And I promise you, if I will do an actual Let's Play, a full playthrough of Ultima 4, I will make sure to reread all the stuff. I'm actually looking forward to rereading all this. So, and here are the credits. There's Dennis Loubet mentioned again, who's the guy who drew all this stuff. He is in the other manual I showed you as well. So, we just read, or we skimmed the Book of History, and I will reread this if I do a full playthrough. So let's get back to the game. Closing the book. We just did. Actually, we closed the file, but nevertheless. You again pick up the ink. As you hold it, you begin to hear a hauntingly familiar lute-like sound wafting over a nearby hill. Still clutching the strange artifacts, you rise unbidden and climb the slope. In the valley below, you see what appears to be a fair. It seems strange that you came that way earlier and noticed nothing. As you mull this over, your feet carry you down towards the side. This is no ordinary traveling carnival, but a Renaissance fair. The pennants on the tent tops blow briskly in the late afternoon breeze. The ticket taker at the Ren Fair's gate starts to ask you for money, but upon spotting your Ang says, "Welcome, friend, enter in peace and find your path." The music continues to pull you forward among the merchants and vendors. Glimpses of fabulous treasures can be seen in some of the shadowy booths. These people are very happy. They seem to glow with an inner light. Some look up as you pass and smile, but you cannot stop. The music compels you to move onward through the crowd. And here we get to a very classic part of these games. Through the gathering dust, you see a secluded gypsy wagon sitting off in the woods. The music seems to emanate from the wagon. As you draw near, a woman's voice weaves into the music, saying, "You may approach, O seeker." You enter to find an old gypsy sitting in a small curtained room. She wears an anchor around her neck. In front of her is a round table covered in deep green velvet. The room smells so heavily of incense that you feel dizzy. Seeing the ancient gypsy smiles and warns you, never part with it. We've been waiting such a long time, but at last you have come. Sit here and I shall read the path of your future. Now imagine my little, I don't know how old was I, 11, 12, something like that, when I first played this game. My mind reading all this. And yes, it was pulling me in. I was, it was the thing Gary had tried to achieve where you're supposed to feel like it's you being transported through this world, and your avatar has, your personality. So let's move on. Upon the table, she places a curious wooden object like an abacus, but without beads. In her hand, she holds 8 unusual cards. Let us begin the casting. The gypsy places the first 2 cards upon the table. They are the cards of justice and humility. She says, consider this. And this is a very important thing, because what we do right now is we're creating a character. And we're not picking out stats like here, that, and that of strength, intelligence, or whatever, but we're answering these questions. And based on our answers, we'll get assigned a class. So maybe based on our answers, we become a paladin. Maybe we're like going for justice and honor. Maybe that makes us a paladin or whatever. We'll see. And it will also determine what town we start in. So I remember the same thing, this gypsy and her cards and those questions appeared in many of the other games. So let's go. Unwitnessed, thou hast slain a great dragon in self-defense. A poor warrior claims the offered reward. Dost thou A, justly step forward to claim the reward, or B, humbly go about life, secure in thy self-esteem? So, what do we pick here? Do we step forward and claim a reward, or humbly go about life, secure in thy self-esteem? These are questions. Compare this to Ultima I and, the depth of the story in there. Here, it's like a mortal choice. So, what do? I think I'll take B. Humbly go about life, secure in my self-esteem. The gypsy places 2 more of the cards upon the table. They're the cards of compassion and honor. She says, consider this. Thou art sworn to uphold a lord who participates in the forbidden torture of prisoners. Each night their cries of pain reach thee. Dost thou A, show compassion by reporting the deeds, or B, honor thy oath and ignore the deeds? Well, I think I would report those deeds. So I got a point in compassion. The gypsy places 2 more of the cards. They are the cards of valor and spirituality. She says, consider this. A local bully pushes for a fight. Dost thou A, valiantly trounce the rogue, or B, decline, knowing in thy spirit that no lasting good will come of it? I think I'd go for B this time. Let's try to be a bit more peaceful this time. The gypsy places 2 more of the cards upon the table. They are the cards of honesty and sacrifice. She says, consider this. Before we go on, once again, consider this stuff happening in a game back in the mid-80s, right? This is far removed from, okay, you're a hero, kill the bad guy, kill a bunch of monsters, level up your stats, and then go to space and kill a monster. I'm not saying that Ultima 1 is bad, but here, Richard Garriott was going for something else, trying to make you think. And for an 11 or 12-year-old, this was like thoughtful stuff. Thee and thy friend are valiant but penniless warriors. They both go out to slay a mighty dragon. Thy friend thinks he slew it, thee did. When asked, dost thou A, truthfully claim the gold, or B, allow your friend a large reward? So it's either honesty or sacrifice. Let's go for sacrifice, right? Be nice to my friend. Gypsy places 2 more of the cards upon the table. They're the cards of compassion and spirituality. She says, consider this. Thou hast been taught to preserve all life as sacred. A man lies fatally stung by a venomous serpent. He pleads for a merciful death. Dost thou A, show compassion and end his pain, or B, heed thy spiritual beliefs and refuse? I think I would show compassion there. Gypsy places 2 more of the cards upon the table. They're the cards of sacrifice and humility. You see, the game starts to give you the same cards because it's like trying to pinpoint, a certain tendency, I guess, in your answer. So that's why humility and sacrifice both reappear. Thou art an elderly, wealthy eccentric. Thy end is near. Dost thou aid? Donate all thy wealth to feed hundreds of starving children and receive public adulation, or humbly live out thy life, willing thy fortune to thy heirs. Difficult. Will I have heirs? I really don't know. So let's go for A, sacrifice. Gypsy plays last two cards upon the table. And none of these answers are wrong, really. I mean, it's just, different approaches, different view of the world, I guess. Compassion and sacrifice. Thee and thy friends have been routed in order to retreat. In defiance of thy orders, dost thou A, stop in compassion to aid a wounded companion, or B, sacrifice thyself to slowly pursuing enemies so others may escape? This is tough. I think I would go for sacrifice. And with the final choice, the incense swells up around you. The gypsy speaks as if from a great distance, her voice growing fainter with each word. So be it, thy path is chosen. There is a moment of intense, wrenching vertigo. As you open your eyes, a voice whispers within your mind. Seek the counsel of thy sovereign. After a moment, the spinning subsides and you open your eyes to... Ta-da! And here we are. This looks similar, right? This looks like it's the same engine that we had in Ultima 1. And I'm a tinkerer. That's an unusual class. I didn't think that would happen. And what's weird is last time I did this, I ended up as a paladin. Weird. So I'm a tinker now, I guess. And I'm in the town of Wind. Think? Oh, okay. So let's move around a little bit. Enter the town. No, it's Minnock. Right, I'm sorry. There's a town of Wind in some of the games. But we're in Minnock, which is the mining town, I believe. So I can walk around this town, and even though the game looks similar, and my character looks similar to Ultima 1, the town is much bigger. Or, let's say, a little bigger. So, my goal is to find some companions who will accompany me. Let me look at my stats again. Strength 19, Dex 25, and 16. I've got a mace and leather, and 200 HP. And, yeah. Okay. So I wanna find me some companions by talking to these people, and you could ask them questions. For example, what's your name? I'm Alcarian. What's your job? I'm a peasant. I hear many things. Let's try here. Let's try help. Okay. So let's end the conversation and see whether we can talk to someone else. Name. I am Jude. What's your job, Jude? To redeem myself. Okay, that's interesting. And let's talk to... Oops. I went to the stats again. Let's talk to this guy. Julia. And I think we found our first companion. Job. Oh, I forgot. She's a tinker, so I can't invite her to my party because I'm a tinker too. So I can't just pick up a companion right away. Let's try some words used. Within this house are many poor and destitute souls. Let me see if she will join me. Oh. Yes, I will help. Okay. So, ask her to join me. Yeah, she cannot join me because I'm a tinker myself. To find another companion, I will have to go and visit other towns. And my job is to find the runes for the 8 different virtues in the towns. They're hidden in these towns. and then go to the shrines of these virtues and pray to them. Use a certain mantra. So basically, the steps are you answer the questions of virtue to obtain your character. This is what we did. We travel to the other towns and pick up companions. We collect the runes from the different towns, and we collect the stones for all the virtues from dungeons. So we have to go to the town to find the rune, have to go to the dungeon to find the stones, use the stones in the altar rooms to get the keys, and then I can attain avatarhood by mastering each virtue and meditating at the shrine. So I have to do things that, for example, when it comes to humility, I have to show humility and do things, that fit to that virtue. And then once I've mastered it, I can go to the shrine of humility and meditate there. And I have to do this for all the virtues to become an avatar of all the virtues. And then I have to obtain 4 items: the bell, the book, the candle, yay, and the skull. And I think that's the skull of Mundane, if I remember correctly. And then I have to go to the Great Stygian Abyss, which is a dungeon. And it appears in some of the other games. And it's also the name of, I think, an Ultima Online expansion. And there I can beat the game. So that's that. And now my next steps would be to go out and find the other towns, find me some companions, travel around. See if I would have to see how I get out of here actually. Slow progress and blocked. Oh, it might be difficult to get out of here then. But I'm not planning on playing the game right now. I do feel like I really want to do another playthrough of this game and re-explore it and rediscover it. And this might be much more interesting than Ultima 1, especially since there's no space battle. So I hope you found this interesting. Thank you for watching, and I do believe that this may be the next Ultima game I'll do a Let's Play on. So, fare thee well, safe travels, happy Easter, and bye-bye.